Indeed. You in tune to the Focus TV One Network. The Purpose Show. 2020, the show with purpose. 2023 with your host,
Camry Trapani.
With 400 forms of emotional manipulation and abuse and violence, the reality of child abuse is far beyond a bodily trauma and an inappropriate touch. It's a lifetime of inhumane trauma and screaming after effects with a daily checklist of the mind's verisimilitude.
Bringing the gospel.
Praise to the Most High.
Heavenly peace, yeah.
Girl, where was over at Philip's house, and guess what's next week?
What?
Talkies.
Rich,
You
get some
don't love
milk.
talkies like
Really?
this, girl. You,
It's funny.
Is your mouth burning? I said, really?
You talk. That's right. You talk. Come on now. You talk. Cause you know they got something to say. You talk. That's right. You talk. That's right. That's right. You talk. Cause you know they got something to say. Man, 2022 is coming to an end. Going into 2023. What's business? Healthy lifestyle. Fitness. Healthy lifestyle. Fitness. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Healthy lifestyle. Fitness. Healthy lifestyle. Fitness. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. Yeah, that's right. Healthy lifestyle fitness. Get fit the right way, mind, body, and soul. 2023 and beyond. Let's go. Purpose, the show with purpose on the Focus TV One Network.
Purpose, the talk show with purpose on the Focus TV One Network.
with your host Kimberly Trapani, every Saturday at 4 Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Focus TV One Network, and I am your host of the Purpose Show, Kimberly Trapani. And before we get to our guests, I would ask that parents, you hold your children's ears for this segment. This is an adult conversation on this segment. And without further ado, we have introducing my guest, Felicity Allen, who is an author of a book. Welcome, Felicity Allen. I appreciate this and having you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I understand you wrote a book called A Father's Love. And I'm looking at the logo. That's an interesting logo. And I see the back of the book as well. And can you tell me about this book and introduce it a little bit better than I can, since you are the author?
Sure. A Father's Love is an autobiography. It is about my life from as early as I can remember until present day, until now. It's a collection of memories and thoughts and feelings pertaining to the sexual and emotional abuse that I suffered from by the hands of my dad, my father. So, yeah.
I understand. I have the Ed Asner angel in the back. I painted it, and a police officer told me once that nursery school was right down the street. So I put a special tribute to Ed that I painted upon his passing. I just wanted to say that. It's clearly about you.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, did you cry? And I know this is difficult when you were writing the book, or were memories coming up for you? How were you coping during this time when you were actually putting the book together?
Well, I actually started writing it as a self-help type of thing. I went years kind of just feeling like I was fine, like I was okay. And then I had an incident with a smell that triggered memories, things that I didn't forget. I knew them. They were always in my head, always on my chest, but they triggered this feeling of pure like terror. And I started having these night terrors. I actually saw a therapist for a few months, and it wasn't working for me. It might work for other people. It just wasn't something that was working for me. So I decided to write this book. I decided to get these feelings out that I've kept in, memories that I've kept in. 90% of that book, I've never even spoken out loud until I wrote the book. I've kept in my whole life. So yeah, I mean, it was an emotional roller coaster saying these things out loud, because I didn't write it. I didn't write anything in that book, type it myself. I spoke to text it.
Yes.
And then I went back and I edited it myself, because my problem wasn't getting them out on paper. My problem was speaking them out loud. The memories, the issues that I was having, things that I went through. It was speaking those words out loud that was so difficult. So I actually sat in my room by myself, downloaded an app, talked to text on my computer, and I spoke all those words that you're reading in the book. I spoke them out loud in order to get them on paper.
And I understand you talked about a little bit about not believing in God, and you and therapy might have been the path for you. But I feel about not believing, the way you felt about not believing in God and how could a God do this, I felt about therapy. Can you tell me, with many mental health issues in America and people not having a voice and feeling ashamed and guilt and all of the emotions and in abuse and trauma, What advice do you have, Felicity, for people that are struggling with abuse that may not necessarily feel that they're ready to go talk about this?
I'm going to be very honest. I love my dad. Even though he did this awful thing to me my entire childhood, I still love him. But it came to a point as an adult that I realized he doesn't love me, and he doesn't love me like a father should. And I need to stop holding him in that light as if he did love me. He didn't. And people that are able to abuse and do these awful things to their victims, family or not, any type of abuse, they are master manipulators. They make you believe that they are there for you. They love you. They care about you. They don't. They care about themselves and their image. They're narcissists. So it came to the point where I realized, wow, I love him, but he does not love me the same. I always thought he's sick. He just needs help. It's just something in his head. He just needs help for it. He doesn't mean to do it. I thought that for a long time. And I realized he was just tricking me into thinking that was the case, and it wasn't. So I would say, don't allow your abusers to control you. Pry their fingers out of your soul, because that's what they're doing. They're leeches. They're leeched onto your soul, and they just control this way that you feel. And you have to realize that they're holding this power over you and they're controlling you. And you got to pry them off of you and speak out. Don't be silent.
And I have, in working with human trafficking organizations and dealing with people in power that can change laws, what laws need to be changed for victims?
I don't think it's so much a law that needs to be changed. Well, actually, with the law that needs to be changed with victims, I would say no time. Like, there should be no time limits on when someone speaks out on abuse. There shouldn't. No statute of limitations, because it took me years and years. I'm 31. I mean, the last time my father touched me, I was 14, almost 14. And I'm just now speaking out and able to speak out about it as much as I should have back then. I tried once when back then, but I just got shut down. So there should be no time limit on victims of abuse whatsoever. Like, there is not one person in this world that can say, oh, you were abused this way, so you have 6 months to get over it and 6 months to talk about the abuse. No, it might take someone 30, 40, 50 years. There should be no statute of limitations on the amount of time that a victim can and will speak up and press charges. And then when it comes to the laws that need to be changed on the abusers, they need harsher punishments. This is ridiculous that grown men, grown women that are doing these things to children, family or not, getting 5 years, 3 years, 6 years. That is ridiculous. There needs to be harsher punishments on the abusers, just as there has to be no time limit on the victim.
And you mentioned in your book, your dad was the monster that haunted your dreams. How does one deal with 11-year-old molestation and inappropriate touching? And how does one find happiness when there's fake smiles and having to go through your new normal?
Growing up, it was just, I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want my dad to get in trouble. So it was, be normal. You're happy. But it was different because my dad was a good dad in the daytime. He went to our sports. He'd play. We'd go swimming. Like, we did things as father, daughter, my sister as well. It was nighttime dad that was so bad. So it was very hard to, as a child, to realize, like, they're not two different people. Stop treating like they're two different people. They're the same guy. But in my mind, the way I was able to cope with it as a child was I separated them. So it was easy for me in the daytime to spend time and be happy with my dad because he was a good dad in the daytime. And in my mind, I feel like that was more of a way to protect me. And it made it so I could just be kind of like normal in the daytime. Like, nobody knew. If anybody, you ask anyone that knew us growing up, our family, well, they'd be like, wow, he's a great dad. He's a great guy. They were great kids. I can't believe this happened. And that is so common. It's so common for victims of abuse to seem normal and happy. It's super common.
We have a live question, and that I'll address the safety issues after break. But before we get to that, and I appreciate Colleen chiming in there, what is your advice for someone that needs to speak out, but they're living with their parents and they may not know what to do? Would a police officer or a teacher be a better resource for to go to if they feel that they are in trouble?
Honestly, either in general. As a general answer, I would say either. But if I were to speak from like my personal experience, if I had to choose between one, it would have been a teacher. You spend a lot of time with your teacher, especially when you're a little bit older and you have several teachers, several instructors. You're already going to have a connection with them from being in their class every day. And a child's going to feel more comfortable speaking to their teacher over a police officer they've never met. That's kind of intimidating with the uniform, and they're like always, how cops are, they just stand up straight and very like militant. So it might be easier for a cop to speak to or a victim of abuse, a child, to speak to a teacher who they see every day. They're a little bit more comfortable, in my opinion.
And thanks, Fred Moore, for chiming in there as well. What is your advice for coping strategies in adulthood when I have found it's a process when these memories and nightmares are coming up? Maybe in your sleep, you wake up screaming. What would your process be to heal from pain?
I realized the weight that I was carrying my whole life from holding everything in. And I realized how heavy it was when I let everything out. My whole life, I kept it in. I mean, my sister and I, it happened to her too, and she's my older sister. We've never spoken about it, about what happened to each other. Still, to this day, we don't speak about specifics because she's not at that point in her life where she's that comfortable yet. I am. But that just shows you how long you carry it. You carry it for decades, and that weight is just sitting and grows and grows and grows. When you finally let it out and just speak your truth, it's like you're being reborn. It's literally, you feel so light and not this dark cloud following you. When I was done with the book and I actually spoke everything out loud for the first time in 20 years, I felt so much better. It was overwhelming, but I felt so much better. So my advice would to not be silent, speak about it, get it out. And sometimes it might be writing for someone. For me, it was actually physically getting the words out of my throat. Some people, it might be writing it, painting it, any way to get it out of your brain and your soul and your chest is the best medicine, in my opinion.
I understand abuse and violence and the gaps in the system. What message do you have for Joe Biden when this system is lacking for our babies in America?
I really think that CPS, Child Protective Services, needs to be completely retrained and revamped. Completely. I when I was 13 and a half, I was almost 14, I actually did come forward and tell on my dad. I did. Mind you, I was a kid and there is no records on file. I went to the county clerk to look for these records, and there's nothing about me pressing charges, me coming forward. There's nothing about it. And I couldn't understand why. As an adult, I still don't understand why there's nothing to show that we had come forward to talk about this abuse, even though it was unfounded. I would feel like there would be some type of paper record. I'm not sure why. There isn't. But there is a huge issue when I report these things. CPS came and spoke to me and my sister separately, and then we were sent to my father's brother. No one came to speak to me after. I don't understand how that happened. There was no follow-up. There was no, more questions. There was nothing. And like I said, as an adult, I still don't understand how when I did come forward back then against my father, how nothing came to fruition, nothing happened.
Assembly Member John McDonald, take note of this, please. Thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
It's okay. I just feel like we were forgotten completely.
Do you feel you had enough support systems as a child? What specifically, if you could put your finger on A, B, and C, could be done differently in America for babies that are experiencing speaking out and being retaliated against?
Like as in revenge?
Yes.
There should be some type of program that gets them out of that situation as soon as possible. It shouldn't be something that has to wait for a court date until they're away from their abuser, or when they're in court and they're expected to say what happened when their abuser is right there. That is crazy to me. There should be some type of programs and processes that are protecting the victims, child, adult alike. It doesn't matter the age. A victim is a victim. The abuse, it's still abuse. No matter if it's emotional, physical, sexual, it doesn't matter. It's still abuse. And that messes with your head. So then when you ask these victims to feel comfortable enough to come forward, why would they feel comfortable enough when, one, they're not going to a safe place far away from their abuser? They're already scared that their abuser is going to come back for them. They're already scared to even speak up in court. It took me my whole life to be able to speak it out loud one time in a book with nobody around. But yet, if I was to press charges, I'd have to do it in court in front of all these people, including my abuser. And you expect children to feel comfortable doing that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We're going to cut to a commercial break and take a short break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about how Felicity Allen is able to survive getting chased with a knife. With 400 forms of emotional manipulation and abuse and violence, the reality of child abuse is far beyond a bodily trauma and an inappropriate touch. It's a lifetime of inhumane trauma and screaming after effects, with a daily checklist of the mind's verisimilitude.
Bringing the gospel.
Praise to the Most High.
Heavenly peace, yeah.
Yeah. Purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. Yeah, that's the meaning of life. You just gotta let it flow. Can find out what direction to go. Purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. See, everybody got a purpose. You just gotta find your purpose. That's right, Purpose the Talk Show. The talk show with a purpose. Only on the Focus TV One Network. purpose.
Purpose, the talk show with purpose on the Focus TV 1 network, with your host Kimberly Trapani, every Saturday at 4 Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned.
I don't give my opinion very often, but I'm going to give it now. And I'm very excited to have Felicity Allen of A Father's Love, the author, on my Purpose show. And this has been a long time coming. And I'd like to say one thing that is an opinion before we get to the safety issues here. And for a child in the years of court dates and having to face an abuser in court, that Hunter Biden asked Frank Biden, your uncle, about how I introduced him with Good Health Hunting, and you're failing miserably because you have a governor in America that has been accused of abuse himself. There's people in power that choke women on a regular basis, and they're still ruling over cases as state judges. That's what's really happening in America and New York. And we have been threatened in silence in our organization, our Empower Women of America, threatening to be arrested if we weren't shut up. And so we are speaking on abuse and violence, and happy to have Felicity Allen on the show. And we will get Felicity Allen on the show more often with her thoughts, because she has the experience in the years of abuse and violence at the hands of a family member. And with that being said, and I'm done preaching to the choir, Felicity, can you tell me, people are asking about your safe place. And I'm getting a lot of chime in, and thank you. Shout out J Rob for joining the show as well. He's a Christian singer. You said you wanted your daddy to have his girlfriends around and get married. Was your daddy's girlfriends a safe place for you?
Yes and no. So growing up, my dad he'd had a lot of women, a lot of girlfriends and all of that. For the most part, they were just for a few weeks. But when he had them, he wouldn't be coming into my bedroom when I was sleeping. So I liked when he had girlfriends, obviously, because the abuse stopped. When he had two of his major girlfriends, I felt like, okay, if they get married, the abuse is going to stop, everything will be fine. And it just never worked out. So yeah, them as a person, it wasn't like me and my sister really only connected with one woman. She was a saint, absolute saint. Reminded me a lot of my grandma, actually. The rest of them were kind of just, they were like shields. When they were there, not much happened with my dad with the abuse, which was great. So yeah, I'd say they were a safe place because of that.
You have a lot of things going on with normalcy and trying to find a place like a natural normal. In 2023, what is normalcy in a family?
Oh gosh, communication is huge. I am beyond lucky. I have a wonderful husband. who has been nothing but supporting, and like anything that I've ever gone through or things that I can't really do or be around or handle because of the abuse that I had as a child, he's never once made me feel bad about it. He's always there just to be supportive and wonderful. And I got 2 great kids. They argue like crazy, but I and I really, if I had to go back and just like if I could make a change in my life, that wouldn't have been it. I wouldn't have wished that I never went through the abuse. Was it awful? Yes. Is it absolutely horrendous and it stopped me from doing a lot of things as an adult? Yes. But it also, I feel like, helped me a lot be the mother that I am. I am very protective and I am more keen. When you are a victim of abuse in this way, you read people really well. Once you start getting over the abuse, right? Once you start healing and opening up, you're able to really just get a good sense of people. And I feel like I'm very, very blessed to have that sense in me and to be able to trust my gut when someone's not that good. And then I'm like, no, my kids gotta, they gotta go away. So I feel like I'm really, uh, I am uber protective, maybe a little too much, but I know for a fact that my kids are in the best hands they possibly could ever be in with me and my husband. So I
Yeah.
got great support system. I have the best support system I could ever ask for, ever.
How can we help you and your family get through such traumatic abuse and violence when an adult sister is still coping with this years later? And how can we help?
I don't think it's a matter of how you can help. It's just time. It just takes time. My sister is on a different level of healing than I am. I've always been a very strong-willed, independent person. I've always been that way. Even my older sister will tell me it's more like I'm the older sister. So in time, she will be able to get to that point where she wants to get it out and she wants to heal and she wants to heal fully and not just kind of ignore it. And when she does, she knows I'm here for her the whole way. And I think support system is the best thing that any family member or friend can do for a victim of abuse. Don't push them to open up about it because it won't be good for them. They need to be ready for it. When they're ready, you need to be ready. That's all you can do is just know that you're there for them and just give them time.
Thanks, Cass, for chiming into the show. And we appreciate, and you have such a support system around you of people that are encouraging you to speak because they feel so guilty about their own pain. And they're afraid of the repercussions and the consequences of speaking. And you did mention some of that in your book as well.
Mm.
How would one get your book if they wanted to read it to address some of these issues?
It's for sale online at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, also on the Archway Publishing bookstore online. That's the self-publishing company that I used was Archway. So it's called A Father's Love, written by Felicity Allen, and you can literally Google that and it'll take you to actually a lot more places than that, but those are the main ones is Barnes & Noble and Amazon, right on sale. There's a hardcover and a softcover for option, and there's ebook.
When you came out as a child and you told the story and no one believed you, how many years did it take from start to finish to finally get to court?
It's never gone to court.
Never?
No. So I didn't know this until I actually put on social media that I wrote a book and I was thinking about publishing it. And that's the first time I've spoken about it since I first told my dad back when I was like 13 and a half. We went to live with my uncle, which is my dad's father or my dad's brother. Sorry. So we went to go stay with him and we stayed for a little bit and my uncle kicked me out and I went to a children's home. He believed that I was doing drugs and I was being bad, but I was a normal, typical kid. I'd sneak out and hang out with my friend Allie and like Allison and stuff. So it's like it was different, but I wasn't doing drugs. I didn't even smoke pot until I was like 16 for my first time. I was like, I didn't know any of that stuff. So my uncle kicked me out and he said it was for this stuff and he kept my sister and I was just confused. Back then I thought it's because I didn't believe in God. They were a big Christian family and I didn't believe in God and I was like, maybe that's why, you know. It wasn't until as an adult I found out because my uncle reached out to me. And I put that post up and he messaged me, haven't spoken to him in years, and he said, "Can you call me?" I called him and he said that he's having some health issues, that he's forgetting things and he's having something wrong with his memory and he wanted to come clean. And he told me that he kicked me out on purpose because he knew if I testified that my dad would go to prison. And I was shocked because he said he believed us. My dad admitted it to him to a certain extent. He admitted it to my uncle that he did these things. So I was just shocked. And he said, "Well, I did it for you. I did it so you didn't feel guilty for putting your dad in prison." I was like, "So you protected the child molester over your niece?" That's what it was. You protected a pedophile. Um, and he said, "If you want to see it that way." So I was just shocked as an adult, even I'm finding out these new things that I didn't know growing up. I didn't know any of that, but my dad never went to court. It never went to court. I went to the children's home. My mom came and picked me up a little while after, and I moved to New York with my mom. And I never went to court. My sister said she did one time, but it got dismissed. She never spoke in court. So nothing ever came of it, ever.
Without giving away too much in your book, what relationship do you have with either of your parents today, and what do you wish for them?
So, growing up when I was younger, our mom left when I was younger. So we didn't have her for, our that time span. It's in the book. I didn't actually start getting close to my mom until I got pregnant with my son, our first child. She wasn't the best mom, but she is an absolute great yaya. I wouldn't change anything about that. She absolutely adores my kids. She's great with them. She's great with me too now. And we're trying to work on our relationship more as a mother-daughter instead of just like here, I did have a really good relationship with my dad for a while. I went a couple years without speaking to him. And when I was 16, he had reached out and we started talking and working on a relationship. He apologized, cried, begging on his knees for forgiveness. And I believed him. I believed he wanted forgiveness and I gave it to him. So we actually had a great relationship. He walked me down the aisle in my wedding. And then when I started having those night terrors, I told him about it. And he pretty much said, "Good luck." And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. You don't love me. You don't care. And then things changed. And now I don't speak to him at all. It's been a few years. I don't speak to him whatsoever. We don't text, call, email, nothing. Me and my mom are close. Me and my dad will never speak again, and ever.
You wrote a letter to your dad.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have included that you didn't in the book?
No.
Do you think schools or police need more involvement? And I asked this question before, in the recovery from abuse process.
Yes.
Which of them is going to be more effective?
I really do believe the school system is going to be more effective. They spend so much more time with these kids. And when I did come out and tell my dad, I had a teacher reach out to me, and it was my algebra teacher. Absolutely loved her. Huge Orioles fan. Had him all over her room. And she cried and she hugged me and she's like, "I'm so sorry." She's like, "I didn't know. I couldn't tell anything was wrong." And I'm not saying that every single person is going to be aware and know, oh, this person's getting abused, they need help. No, it's not that easy. We're really good at hiding it. I mean, you have to think about the amount of abuse that kids have gone through, the amount of abuse I went through. You're literally learning how to act. You have to act not scared. You have to act like a normal kid. Put a smile on your face. Have a good time. Your brain has this shut off switch in your head that kind of like protects you. So it just shuts off all the awful, horrendous things that are just going through your emotions, and it just shuts it off. So then you're able to be this normal kid. But teachers need help. It's not just teachers, it's therapists at the schools, it's the lunch ladies. I mean, every single person in the schools, in my opinion, should have more training. They need it and they want it. They want to be able to help. But you have to remember, kids are resilient, and it's going to be really hard sometimes for you to notice abuse, especially if it's not a physical abuse where you can see marks and stuff. It might be harder, but I think the government should give them more assistance, more training, because these teachers want it. They want to help. They just don't have the resources. They just don't.
And you mentioned training and resources, and that's what we're going with this, with the Purpose Show. And you're definitely welcome on in the future to talk more in detail about this issue when people feel they don't have a voice. They're frustrated with the family court system. They're frustrated with the CPS system that feels like we don't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, before we wrap, a couple things? What abuse signs would you recognize in a child to know and identify that there's a problem?
I'm not going to lie, it's hard. With me, I used to wet the bed. Teacher's not going to know that. You know, I wet the bed until I was 13, 14. My teacher wouldn't know that. A friend or family member might. A teacher can recognize things like, I went through a phase that I hated myself. And I went from wearing colorful, happy clothes to hoodies and sweats and wearing my hair down, and I was just depressed. So, I mean, it's signs in what they wear, what they do with their hair, you know, the way they speak. Are they making eye contact? Are they shuffling? Are they fidgeting? I used to flick a rubber band on my wrist when I started thinking about the bad things to get my mind off of that and onto the pain. So it's little things like that you're going to be able to tell. But it also could be misconstrued with a kid that has ADHD, you know, if they're sitting there flicking, moving their foot a lot. So it's going to be really hard. You just have to be really diligent and notice things that might not be so easily noticeable to someone who doesn't have training.
Clearly, 20 years ago, we had gaps in the system. Clearly, in 2023, Chuck Schumer, take note, there's gaps in the system. How many years would you say, if you didn't go to court yet, how many years would a child have to endure speaking out and getting justice, whatever that may mean?
From cases that I have read and looked into and actually done my research on, it could spread out over a few years.
And again, you have family members who were equally as abused and had gone through such trauma. And I know you were surviving chasing with a knife in the family and the drinking binges and all of that, which is usually statistically tied in with 90% women being the abuse victims, mind you. You can check all the credible resources on that statistic in the government. But what would you say has changed since you were a child, and what needs to be done differently now for kids?
I don't think much has changed. I just don't. I really don't feel like. Actually, I take that back. I think it's getting worse. There's these social media things. There's games out there. There's all types of things that are out there trying to teach our kids that boundaries aren't an issue. No, you don't have any boundaries. It's okay for a grown man to be half naked with a half naked teenager taking pictures for a magazine. Or it's okay for these big companies to have children with sex toys in the ad. Like, I just don't understand. It's getting worse. It is fully getting worse. And they're trying to desensitize our kids into these things that they think that it's okay. So you have big corporate America and these huge popular, Balenciaga and all these companies, and they're trying to brainwash our children into thinking that it's okay to have no boundaries. It's okay for a 40-year-old man or woman to touch and molest a 10-year-old girl or boy. And they're trying to show them that it's okay for these kids to be around sex toys and these things, and it's not. And society is effed. I will be completely honest. And I would have said it if we weren't on air. I'm just letting you know. It
Yes,
is
you can
completely.
say it.
It's,
Governor Ron DeSantis and his wife Casey. Hello, social media. I'll work with you on this. You have my word live on air. I'll work up with you on shutting down and quality controls and boundaries on social media.
I mean, look at it was Balenciaga's, right? That ad with the children with the sex toys all over the ad. And what? Since when is this okay? This is what you're okay with teaching our kids? This is okay? Grown men marrying little girls, grown women molesting little boys. Like, they're trying to teach our kids that there's no boundaries, that this behavior is normal. Hey, Balenciaga, everybody wants to buy their shoes and their clothes. Look at this ad, children. Go ahead, go buy a sex toy. It's okay. It's not okay. And this is what they're trying to teach our kids. They're trying to desensitize them so they can make it a new norm. It's absolutely insane to me. So to answer your question, it's gotten worse, 100 times worse than it was when I was a kid, 100 times.
And we also have a missing child here up in New York and not found. And there's many things going on in the world. They didn't listen to that case with the Gabby case in Long Island, and she went across the country with the boyfriend Brian Laundrie, and the police weren't listening to her, and she was clearly in trouble. But it's so heart-wrenching to watch these cases ending up from mental health issues. We're blaming on mental health issues for these people that are struggling with abuse and violence and domestic violence and child sex crimes, to get to a point of taking the victims seriously. What message would you have right now with suicide could have been your path? What's the solution?
There was a long stretch in my life where I thought about killing myself, and I thought about how, when, and what I would write when I did it and how I would do it. And I thought about it all the time. And then it got to the point where I thought about killing my abuser and how I would do it. And mind you, I'm a kid. I'm not even a teenager at this point, and these are the things that I'm thinking about. Most kids are thinking about this boy they have a crush on at 12 or 13, or the sport that they're about to do, or scared about a test. And here I am, scared to even close my eyes at bed because my dad is going to come in there. And I would think about poisoning his whiskey and how I could get rid of him. It's hard. It's hard on a kid. You're going through this abuse of someone that's supposed to love you, that's supposed to care. And then, or kids that are going through abuse by a complete stranger, then they're unsafe. I mean, abuse in general, it just really screws with the kid really bad. And then the sad part is you have to be able to get yourself out of it, and you have to want to do better. You have to want to beat your abuser. If you don't have that in you, it's going to be impossible, because not anyone can make you talk about it. You have to come to that conclusion that your abuser is not there for you. Your abuser is not have your best interests at heart, and you have to release them from that hold on you, or else you'll never heal.
Ted Cruz, this is what I mean about what law you're following. If it walks like a duck, it is a duck. We can't teach a dog old tricks. Felicity, I appreciate your time. Would you let us know if someone wanted to book you for a public speaking engagement or a book signing? How would they do that?
They could just email me at afathersloveinfo@gmail.com. So it's afathersloveinfo@gmail.com, and I will be able to answer any emails, any questions. If you are needing just someone to talk to and you don't want to speak to someone that you know and you kind of feel uncomfortable, which I've been through that, you can email me too. I want people to feel comfortable enough to ask any questions they need. I am just someone that you can lean on and I can give you advice. It might not be advice you like, but I can try. Just know that if you feel alone, you're not. You're not alone ever. I am here for you. And there are so many other people that have been abused and are in our position that are here for you too. And I don't want you to feel alone. So speak up, come forward, and I can try to help the best I can, but at least know that you can email me anytime.
Thank you so much. And Steve Daines, thanks for the phone call. Please get on this a how-to training manual for the White House on what is really going on with abuse and violence and missing children with our children and our adults in America. Felicity, will you write another book?
I thought about it and I thought about the aftermath because like I said, I found out so much of new information after I came out that I even wrote the first one that's not in the first one. You won't read about the whole conversation with my uncle after that in the first book because I didn't know about it till after this one was already written. So I did think about it just to give a good, follow up of how my life is now, how I've gotten through things. Starting to go through things now that my daughter is around the same age that it got really bad for me. So it's kind of getting to me. So I did think about it. We'll see. I don't know.
Yes. And our audience is also asking, can you repeat how to contact you one more time so they
Yes.
can write this down? Email.
Yeah. So it's an email and it's a father's love info, info at Gmail. A father's love
Love.
info at gmail.com.
A father's love at Gmail.
No,
That's
a father's love info at gmail.com.
perfect. Thank you so much for repeating that. I appreciate it. And anything else we have not covered that you would like to discuss before we wrap?
No, I just really want to help people understand that they're not as alone as they think they are. I felt alone for a long time. I felt alone even living with my sister who also got abused. I felt so alone on this island of just pain. And I wasn't. I wasn't alone and I should have realized that, but I was young and scared. And I just want to be able to help people feel like you're not alone. You're not doing this by yourself. You have a whole community of people that are supporting you and that we're here for you. And if you're not comfortable coming forward, that's fine. You can even email me anonymously and I will try to help you through your situation the best I can. Just know that you are not alone. And as abuse victims, we need to understand that we are no longer silent and we need to speak up against our abusers. That's it.
And you can also email the Purpose Show info at focus.media anytime. We appreciate the donations. Our keyword on YouTube is focus.media. You can catch this on replay there. If you need to listen to this multiple times, listen. We appreciate everything. We appreciate having Felicity Allen. I'm going to invite you back on my show again. And we need to make waves, maybe something, a sign, a symbol, or do something to shake it up, to wake up Congress that this is not okay for our future in America. I appreciate it, Felicity Allen. Thank you so much. I love having you on my show. I'm going to invite you back.
Thanks.
And can you close me with a quote?
I would just want to say no longer silenced. We are to rise up together and beat these cowards because that's what they are. And we are going to put them where they belong, and that's in prison. So rise up, no longer silent. You're not alone.
Just know we're praying for you and your family, Felicity, and we're praying for the world. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining this show.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys.
You too. With 400 forms of emotional manipulation and abuse and violence, the reality of child abuse is far beyond a bodily trauma and an inappropriate touch. It's a lifetime of inhumane trauma and screaming after effects with a daily checklist of the mind's verisimilitude.
Yeah. Bringing the gospel.
Praise to the Most High.
Heavenly peace, yeah.
Indeed. You in tune to the Focus TV One Network. The Purpose Show. 2020, the show with purpose. 2023 with your host,
Kimberly Trapani.
Purpose, the show with purpose.